with a great number of participants. I'm Alderwoman Marina Triovich, and I'm so excited to be here. As was stated, this is our second meeting, and I've got great news. We're slowly approaching the halfway point of our neighborhood plan, and it should be complete by the end of this year, which I think is thrilling. And let me tell you kind of how we got here. Was the Southeast Side plan that includes our wonderful Bayview neighborhood had not really seen an update for over a decade or so. And I think we can all agree that so much has changed. These last few years during the pandemic have been unique, but so much has changed for all of us, homeowners, businesses, developers. We can, this is really a hot spot in the city of Milwaukee. And, you know, as I talk to neighbors throughout the district, one thing I often hear is, you know, maybe I don't like this, or I like this, or I want more green space, or that should be historically preserved, or we need this kind of business. A big one we're going to talk about is housing and accessibility and affordability. And I think we need to get that all in one place that's united. We that live in this neighborhood and own or are invested, we are the ones that can be the architects of our future. And I do think it might be sometimes easier to say what you don't like. And what I love about this process is it really asks us to dig deep and say, what do we want? Who do we want to be in the next 5, 10, or as we have here, 20 years? So we can send a signal clearly to the development community, to each other, to homeowners, to businesses, to historic preservation, what it is we're looking for. And I think part of the planning process, it certainly is the plan, but it's the process to get a plan, which is coming together in a united way, exchanging ideas and producing a vision. And I find that incredibly exciting. I think it's just what we need while we're at a crossroads. I believe there's a lot of development coming into this city with the federal government support. And we know, like I said, our neighborhood continues to grow. So let's have it grow in a way that feels inclusive, positive, and something that we can all participate in and be proud of. So I want to thank you. I know we're all working and running and getting home, for taking time tonight to be part of a group that's going to help draft that blueprint for our part of this wonderful city. Pretty exciting, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just second what the Alderwoman said. Thank you and welcome everyone. We really appreciate your joining us this evening, and we appreciate you spending an evening with us. This is the second community-wide meeting for the Bayview Neighborhood Plan of 2040. We had our last meeting back in September. And I just want to provide just a few housekeeping notes. We know that you're spending valuable evening time with us, so please feel free to move around, eat, do whatever you need to do. We just ask that you stay on mute. We will be monitoring the chat throughout the meeting, so if you have any questions, comments, feel free to type that in, and we'll get to questions as they come up. And just your feedback is truly instrumental in helping us shape the recommendations in this plan. We're going to be using an online polling system later on in the presentation. If you want to get ready, the information there on the right side of the screen, feel free to grab your smartphone or open another tab in the browser, and you can go to that website, menti.com, enter that code that you see there, or use the QR code if you prefer. And don't worry, I'll be showing that information again when it's time for the questions. So you'll see that information again. So, but feel free to grab your smartphone and have it handy if you just want to get ready. We have a lot of information to share today. We've been doing a lot of data gathering, so I want to respect everyone's time tonight, and we'll jump into the presentation. In terms of the agenda, we'll have a quick review of the plan and goals, followed by a summary of what we've heard from the first public meeting that we had back in September, and what we've heard from the business community through a survey and focus group that we conducted. We'll then be spending time really going over some key data on demographics, housing trends. But then the bulk of the meeting is really going to be devoted to getting your feedback on some of the important issues that this plan is addressing. For example, how to address housing needs in the future, how to improve biking and walking in Bayview, and to get some initial thoughts on new development and redevelopment, how it should look and feel. We have our design consultants also joining us from Yard and Company and P3 Development Group, and you'll get a chance to meet them on this meeting. So with that, I am going to turn it over very quickly to my colleague, Jill Kaltenberg, with the Parks and the DPW, Department of Public Works, to give a quick update on the Zillman Park. I'm sure many of you are interested in how this project is progressing. So Joe, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Monica. So yeah, I appreciate very much you guys letting us take a few minutes of your time as part of your meeting to provide a quick update on the Zillman Park reconstruction project. We are kind of gathering momentum again after a little bit of a lull here. And so I wanted to kind of put in people's mind that a few different things about the project. If you're not familiar, this is the site on 2168 South Kinnicknick. We have a $500,000 budget provided by a TIF that was created for this purpose. And we have a complete conceptual plan. So some of you may remember we were at Baby Gallery Night last year. And prior to that, we'd had a virtual meeting to get feedback on and get some ideas about what people want to see in the park. So I just wanted to direct you to, I'm not going to go into it as a part of this, but I just wanted to direct you to the fact that it's on our project website. And I'll post that. You see it on your screen, but I'll post it to the chat as well. We are taking feedback on that through March 15th. So like I said, you can see the whole conceptual plan. It also kind of gives a rundown of how we got there in terms of the feedback and how the plan responds to what we're hearing from the community. So I would love it if you take the opportunity to provide some feedback in that forum on the Engage MKE website. Our next steps are going to be to work with an ad hoc committee. This is composed of residents, business owners, the Bayview Neighborhood Association will have a representative, as well as the city of Milwaukee. And that group is kind of tasked with the next phase of design development and then bidding the project. There will be another opportunity for broader community engagement. So I don't want you to think that your feedback is done after this opportunity. And so that's another thing that the ad hoc committee is kind of work through to figure out how best to get feedback that will support getting us to a point where we can bid this project and have construction documents. Real quick timeline, that's going to be ongoing this summer. Hopefully the bidding and procurement this fall. And most likely construction won't start until spring 2023, but I'm hopeful that if the bidding and procurement can happen early enough that we can use the winter, maybe do some site prep and that sort of thing so that we can hit the ground running in 2023 and be ready for a summer full of activity in 2023 as well. So that's all. Like I said, I appreciate you letting me have the time. I am going to be in the rest of the meeting. So if you have a specific question about the park, feel free to message me in the chat. Or if it's for everyone's benefit, you can ask a question to the larger chat and I'll try to answer that as well. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Looking at the plan area, I just want to note that we have updated the planning area slightly since the last time we met. We expanded it slightly to include both sides of Chase Avenue there on the west side of the planning area. It simply made more sense to look at both sides of this corridor, a corridor that often feels kind of like it's at the outskirts of the Bayview neighborhood. But otherwise, the planning boundaries have remained the same, with Bay to the north, the lake to the east, and then roughly the railroad tracks in Morgan on the south end. In terms of why we plan and how we use these plans, the Alderwoman gave a really good introduction. As she mentioned, we're updating the Bayview section of the Southeast Side Area Plan, which was done in 2008. And we all know that a lot has changed since then, and Bayview, deserves a more in-depth, comprehensive look than was included in that plan. This plan it's the city's official policy for land use and development decisions. We look at these comprehensive plans every day to ensure that our decision-making is transparent, fair, and that it's consistent with the community feedback that we receive during the planning process. These area plans also help establish priorities for a variety of different issues. For example, public infrastructure like parks and streets, for economic development initiatives, and then sustainability and equity improvements. And then we update these plans regularly as required by state statute. Very briefly, just to review the goals of this study, this plan will explore different development options along Kinnickinnick and Chase Avenues. We're also looking to identify desired uses for some large sites. For example, the Army Reserve site north of Beulah Brinton. We're looking, that's a city-owned property that we're going to explore in depth. We're looking for ways to support the local businesses in the commercial areas that make Bayview unique. We're looking at providing housing options for a range of incomes and family types. This plan will look at improving the public realm, including parks and streets, and also determining interest and educating residents on different historic preservation options. And throughout this planning process, considering equity and sustainability will be a key factor. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Tanya Fonseca, to go over some of the community and business engagement that we've done to date.
Sounds good. Thanks, Monica. So yeah, to date, we've had one community meeting. So this is the second one. And if you do want to go back, if you haven't had the chance to watch that first meeting, you certainly can. This meeting is just building on the feedback we have previously received. We also have had 2 plan advisory group meetings now. And we also now have an email list of over 200 people from the neighborhood or that work in the neighborhood that want to be in the loop. We've conducted a business survey now and a focus group of business owners, which we'll kind of detail shortly. We also, through our engagement platform, engagemke.com, have over 5,000 visits and nearly 400 comments from 100 individuals. So just thank you all for those that have participated. And if you haven't yet, certainly there will be more opportunities throughout the process to do so. We're really trying to be more accessible beyond meetings as well to get engagement in all forms from community members. We also have been doing a number of stakeholder interviews with developers, residents, business owners, historic preservation advocates, and more. And we are working in coordination with the Bayview Neighborhood Association. In terms of what we've heard so far, we really are getting unprecedented feedback given our engagement platform and digital meetings. So it is a new era of engagement, and that's really exciting that we can meet with all of you, and all of your feedback can be online fully transparently, and you can see what you're all saying. But just to kind of boil it down, here's kind of the streamlined list of what we're hearing. Clearly the strengths are that adjacency to the lake and the commercial corridor of KK itself, which is, a regional attractor and has a lot of eclectic local stores, the nice parks, the transit access, the neighborhood association itself and all that it does, friendly neighbors, the active historical society, and the quality schools. In terms of opportunities and aspirations that we're hearing from all of you, safer walking experience, we're hearing loud and clear, less petty crime, better maintenance of parks is desired, Affordable and accessible housing is a huge priority. Housing options for seniors, more diversity in general, really in all senses of the word. Thoughtful development that's the right scale and character, better bike lanes, wider sidewalks, filling, the few remaining vacant storefronts and lots in the neighborhood, and then finally sustainable new development is a desire. In terms of business engagement, here's kind of some snippets from what we're hearing. We sent the survey to over 100 businesses, and we mailed postcards to over 400. So it was really impressive to learn that there are over 400 businesses in the neighborhood, which is, I think, a bit of a surprise and really fantastic. We received 27 responses, and most responses were from business owners located on KK, but there was also some representation from Delaware, Oklahoma, and Howell. There was an equal split between business owners that own the building that they're in and ones that lease their building. And we got a good response from a good mix of business types. And finally, over 50% have been located in the neighborhood for over 10 years, which is really fantastic. Looking at the future, businesses in general are very optimistic. About half expect to hire additional workers and to expand services, which is really fantastic to hear, particularly in a time like this. A number of factors pose potential challenges, but there's really no single factor. And businesses really expect to remain in the neighborhood, which is great to hear. In general, we heard that Bayview is such a desirable place to have a business because residents support the businesses right there. It's also a well-known commercial area, or that it has well-known commercial areas. Regionally, there is a significant draw to Bayview. The neighborhood has a really positive reputation, and the neighborhood demographics support the businesses there, which means there's a lot of folks with the disposable income to support the businesses. Who visits Bayview businesses and how? Well, as we mentioned before, the businesses in the neighborhood are a major destination, but there is a local draw. And given that, we heard from a number of businesses that walking and biking and busing are important ways of getting to their businesses. And so that really draws a major connection to the feedback we're getting about safer connectivity in the neighborhood, sidewalk improvements, and all of those pieces of feedback. And finally, the top 5 priorities that we heard from businesses are improving that pedestrian experience, improving the appearance of buildings, having fewer vacant properties, a greater feeling of personal security, and finally, improved streetscaping. And just over 50% mentioned that they would like to see more coordination between businesses as we move forward. And with that, I'll turn things back to Monica.
Thank you. I'm going to quickly go over some of the demographic and housing trends that we've seen. Part of a study is definitely gathering a lot of data to make sure we have a good analysis of what's on the ground and how that pertains as we move forward. These are just a few highlights. I've tried to synthesize the data points to kind of the most relevant. I will make this PowerPoint available and a recording of this presentation available on the project website in the next couple of days. So if you want to spend some more time looking at the charts or graphs, you'll be able to do that. So but I'll just quickly go over some of the highlights. And I always think it's interesting to see how what we've been hearing from residents and what the data shows often correspond. And I think it just really shows that, that residents, kind of know innately what's going on in their neighborhood. So they really, the community engagement and the data really reinforce each other in a lot of ways. So with this slide, you can see, the population and the number of households is declined slightly since 2000. And the projections show that it's expected to remain steady, given that the city of Milwaukee has experienced a slight decline in population. These numbers aren't unexpected. In terms of the demographics, households in Bayview are relatively more financially secure, with a median income of nearly $67,000. Bayview has a higher median income than the city as a whole, the county as a whole, and the south suburbs. And this, by south suburbs, we're including South Milwaukee, St. Francis, and Cudahy. But that said, at the same time, more than, just over 1 in 5 Bayview households earns less than $35,000. So we know there's a significant need there in households that are probably experiencing quite a bit of financial strain. So we want to make sure that we're looking at some of those nuances as well. Bayview is increasingly diverse. While over 80% of the population identifies as white, there's a growing Latino population, and that's consistent with city and county trends. The housing market, I'm sure as many of you are aware, Bayview is a hot market. Sale prices and assessments are increasing. Bayview has experienced the largest growth in assessments of any neighborhood in Milwaukee outside of downtown, increasing 31% since 2007. At the same time, there's a relatively low vacancy rate, kind of estimated between 4 and 8%, which is kind of actually towards the low end. There's been, according to some census data, even though you've seen some of the larger apartment buildings built, like the pictures on the right, there's only been a relatively small increase, about a net increase of 300 units since 2000. So we know there's a lot of demand, and that there haven't been a lot of new units coming online, some but not a lot. At the same time, though, the housing stock is relatively old. 2/3 has been built before 1939. A lot of it is single family and duplexes. Only 5% of the housing stock has been built since 1980, and that tends to be the larger apartment buildings. So we definitely see kind of a need there for, from some different types of housing styles. We'll be getting to that shortly. So in terms of affordability, what we're seeing here is that increasingly working class and middle class incomes simply aren't sufficient to afford housing in Bayview. And that's really a big shift for a neighborhood that prides itself on its working class roots. And it was often a popular choice for first-time home buyers. So we're definitely seeing a shift away from that. Based on the average home sale prices that we were just looking up, a household would need approximately $72,000 to afford a home in a way that's affordable to them. And you can see from some of the salaries on the right that we compiled, just some salaries from occupations that you see from businesses in the neighborhood, are typical middle class jobs. That really leaves a lot of folks out, the way that housing prices are going. So I thought that was interesting to show the salaries. Just some takeaways from what this information shows. The population household size has been relatively stable, but the number of units has been stagnant or only increasing slightly. At the same time, Bayview is popular. I'm sure housing demand is strong, prices are increasing, and housing needs are expected to evolve as the population gets a little older, as family moves in. We want to make sure that we're providing housing choices that accommodates the people who live here. And affordability is becoming a growing issue. We're going to switch over to Mentimeter now. So this is what I was showing at the beginning of the PowerPoint. So if you can grab your smartphones or open another tab in the browser to go to mentimeter.com and enter the code I'll just read it out, 3933-4656. We're going to do a series of polling questions to kind of get at that, what we're just talking about, the new housing styles that we don't see a lot of in Bayview. To really, we're trying to kind of get a feel for what people are interested in seeing. We're also looking at where it might fit in within the neighborhood. So hopefully people have had a little time to access the survey. And I'm going to switch over to the, okay. So the first question, and as I see people are already replying and you get to see the results in real time. So the question is, do you have friends or family members who would like to live in Bayview but can't afford it? And we'll give a few moments, allow people to get the hang of things and provide some answers. Okay. Okay, so as people are, I know some people are still kind of logging in and answering, but it looks like 60% are saying yes. So that's about 20 equally, 20% no, 20% not sure. So I think that that's really helpful to hear. So it seems like a lot, the majority know someone who isn't able to afford to live in the neighborhood. Moving on. So the next series of images is going to show different housing styles that are kind of underrepresented in Bayview. This is a picture of townhomes. All the images that you see here are examples from around Milwaukee. And one is actually from Bayview. But yeah, it kind of shows it's a single family home. It shares a wall typically with another townhome, little smaller footprint, but often a good option for kind of people, first time home buyers. Okay. I see the dots populating the screen. And there's also a function here where you can provide a comment. So if you want to, and what we're really gauging, so if you want to provide a comment on why you voted the way you do, please, feel free to do that. That helps us kind of, dive down a little deeper. And what we're looking here is more like the town, whether townhomes in general. These are a few examples, but yeah, these are a few examples, but we're not looking for whether you like the color gray or not, for example. It's more just the style of the home, just the housing type in general. But it looks like 18 like it, 10 love it, and 15 say it's okay, or no strong opinion. Okay, thank you. Moving on, so small apartment building. So this is a small apartment or condo building. Think kind of like 6 to 8 units. This is a style that we don't necessarily have a lot of new construction here in Milwaukee. Sometimes it can be slightly more expensive to build, but it really depends on the housing market. So let me get the countdown ready. See a comment saying that denser housing would be amazing. Okay, so far looks, I think, more than half love it or like it. Density is key, more housing units at all price points, more density. Okay, the comments are coming in. Condos for ownership would be great. Condos are definitely underrepresented in Bayview. Ooh, lots of comments. Expensive condos do not solve the affordable housing problem. Okay. And then some about new housing meeting historical preservation standards. Okay, I have a couple people that hate it or don't like it so much, or no opinion, but Generally favorable. Okay, moving on to the next one. Accessory dwelling units, and this is a fancy planning term, and all it really means is kind of when you have a smaller residential unit located on an existing lot. And this can mean like a smaller apartment or smaller building, like in the backyard. You see a lot of that in River West. Or it could be like an apartment above a garage. There's, the example on the top there shows the apartment above a garage. This, of course, depends on how large your lot is, whether you could fit it in if you have a garage, or if your lot is large enough to fit another structure on it. But just looking for some general feedback. Love the uniqueness. Could be a more affordable option for singles or couples. Okay. Homeowners should be able to decide if they want to build. Okay. Currently living in a historical carriage house. Good for multi-generational families. Okay. Okay, if it could be worked into existing areas. Okay, we're getting, thank you for the comments. This is fantastic. Okay, this looks in general, very positively received, with 17 people loving it, 15 liking it. Against, it's okay, no opinion. And then a kind of a sliver of people who really don't care for it. Okay. Moving on. This is cottage housing. And kind of the key features here to keep in mind is that you have smaller units, but they have kind of shared amenities, like a shared garden space. They might have like a community room that's shared, but it's all kind of centered around or clustered around a green space, and the units are smaller. This the picture on the bottom is an example from Kenosha that was really marketed with seniors in mind. Thinking that maybe seniors want some options that are not necessarily a large apartment structure, but where they could live within the neighborhood in a community feeling with still having some green space. Okay, kind of we have some similarities in responses. Okay, lots of comments. I love this. It's okay, but prefer apartment buildings. Important to consider the growing aging population. People shouldn't be able to stop. Comments are going so quick, I can't read. Gardening, seniors, multifamilies, co-op. Needs to have access for handicapped. Love it, works well for the neighborhood. Does it still support engagement with broader community? Okay. Okay. Excellent. Yes, thank you for your feedback. Overall, most people like it or love it. Okay. So this is an important question. We're looking at, where should some of the higher density housing go? Some of these examples that we showed you, where would you see that as being appropriate? I'm looking for, I hope everyone can see the answer or the possible the options. They didn't show up on the side of the screen, but it looks like people are able to choose. So yeah, we're kind of looking at like whether it should be, so I'm seeing a lot of like with 15 there, the pink, along some of the busier streets and the transit lines like KK, Howell, Oklahoma, followed by the jockeying there for anywhere in Bayview. The blue has some strong support. And then 17, I think this is a very good point, that it really depends on how it's designed and laid out, how well it ends up fitting into the neighborhood. Okay. Okay. So yeah, just really speaking to the importance of the design. Yeah, it depends on scale. Saying increasing density along existing transit lines makes sense. Keep away from KK. Don't expand into existing houses on side streets. The best part of Bayview is the houses. So keeping dense housing helps retain the charm, I think. But we'll record all these comments and look through them after. So fantastic. Moving on. This is, what would you consider to be the most positive outcome as some of these housing options were built in Bayview? I'll let everyone kind of read the comments or read the options on their own. Okay, seeing some clusters around more affordable housing options, greater ethnic and racial diversity. Those are the two clear concentration of dots. So, okay, good feedback. Okay. Thank you. And this is the last question for this segment. I'll just quickly go. What would you consider to be the primary challenges if some of these housing options were built in Bayview? Again, I'll let everyone kind of read these on their own. And if there's anything, feel free to add a comment if you've thought of something that you don't see represented here. Okay. Because you want to know, just, what the opportunities are, but also what the challenges are. So we can make sure that we try to mitigate any issues and just really make sure that as planners, we're being cognizant of all the different issues. So seeing a few, so for our parking challenges is coming up, change, concerns about change in the neighborhood character, displacement of current residents is kind of third option, and more traffic. Need to be mindful of keeping new construction keeping in the character of the existing neighborhood. Cars of the past, younger people want public transit, increase in tax assessment, less car-centric design. Okay, I think everyone just got a chance to vote. So thank you for everyone, all your comments. We're going to go back to the presentation. Okay, thank you. And we'll have a few more polling opportunities there. Just want to let me know, Tanya, if you see anything in the chat that should be addressed as we go. Feel free to just chime in. But just wanted to go over streets and transportation, as we mentioned. Concerns about reckless driving emerged early and often among almost everyone that we spoke with, residents, business owners. It's a major issue in the city, in Bayview, nationwide, really. Every neighborhood we work in, we hear about how reckless driving affects, really the everyday quality of life, and that it's increasing. And the reasons for this are complex, and there's no single solution. But we know that, beyond reckless driving concerns, we know there's a lot of opportunities to make walking, biking, and taking transit more pleasant. We'll be taking a look as part of this plan. We'll be taking a look at identifying priorities to help steer resources to making improvements in the streets. We're thinking short-term and long-term. Some of the locations, we got a lot of really great information from the Social Pinpoint site. People really helped us identify some of the key areas of concern. Kinnickinnick, Superior, Oklahoma, Delaware, the intersection with KK, Howell, Lincoln, then north of there with KK, Beecher and Bay, Howell Avenue, Lincoln Avenue, Chase Avenue. These all emerged as some of the hot spots. Our Department of Public Works recently completed a pedestrian plan that had some really fantastic recommendations to make, biking, walking safer and more enjoyable, looking at curb extensions, raising intersections, just improving crosswalks so they're more visible, even improving right turn lanes so they become more of an amenity rather than just a free flow lane. So we'll be taking a look at all of this stuff kind of more in the next phase. We'll also be partnering with Wisconsin Bike Federation to do a walk audit of some of the corridors. So we look for, and that will be with residents will have an opportunity to walk with us and really help us identify some of those spots. So we look forward to dealing with that in more detail with our next round. I want to now introduce our design consultants. We have Yard and Company from Cincinnati and P3 Development Group based here in Milwaukee. We've brought them on to help us take a look at, in more detail, a handful of key sites. They've worked in all sorts of communities similar to Milwaukee, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves so you get to meet them. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
Great. Thank you, Monica. Good evening, everybody. My name is Joe Nickel with Yard and Company. I'm joined by my colleagues, Kevin Wright at Yard and Janine Edwards at P3. A little bit about Yard and Company. As Monica mentioned, we're based in Cincinnati. We do work all over the country. Our focus, we're a multidisciplinary urban growth firm that concentrates in three kind of key areas: urban design planning, development, and place management. I think it's easiest to think of our role in this project as helping tie the outcomes of an immersive and active public engagement and outreach process to kind of specifics around key sites and locations and concepts that will be embedded in this neighborhood master plan. So we're really excited to join the city and you all in charting this path. Our role will be really focused over the next few months. We're coming to town in about 5 weeks. We'll be able to visit the neighborhood, tour similar neighborhoods or competing neighborhoods citywide, as well as the focus areas that we'll review in a minute. And then we'll develop options that we will take to the streets and to common neighborhood meeting spots to solicit feedback on how those options are taking shape, and then help the city make choices and refine preferred solutions in each of those areas. I'm going to go ahead and introduce P3 Development Group as well. Janine is actually in a spot with spotty reception. So P3 is a group that we've been in discussions with and have loved their company for several years now. As Monica mentioned, they're based in Milwaukee, doing great work all over the city. Their role on this project is taking the work and the insights that we all generate together and taking it out across the community and collecting feedback and having conversations around growth, change, and the specifics of these key development and focus areas. And then bringing those insights and that feedback back to the project team and helping us sort through it, prioritize it, and shape the final outcome. So we're really excited to be working with them and all of you on this project. More from me in a little bit. Thanks, Monica.
Okay, thank you. Yes, we knew that we needed some assistance in helping bring some of these focus areas, bring them to life with images. So we're happy to have P3 and the Yard joining us. So I'm going to go over some of the focus areas that we'll be spending. This plan is going to look at, the whole neighborhood, from a range of issues, but we are going to look maybe in a little more detail at a few key sites and corridors for a variety of reasons. How we selected these sites, we looked at a lot of the reason we're looking at these key sites. It really helped us, the comments that we got at the first community meeting and on Social Pinpoint. We saw a lot of concentration around certain areas. We also had conversation with residents, and we also wanted to look at a kind of mix of things that were kind of had near-term potential and then also long-term potential for development and redevelopment. We've created 2 different categories for these focus areas. The first one's kind of development sites. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about why we chose the sites and a little more background about each one of these sites. But we had the development sites at the Army Reserve, Chase Avenue, and the BMO Harris Bank site. And then also what we're calling the future KK experience, because we heard loud and clear that KK could be a better experience than it currently is. And in particular, that what we're calling the plaza, where the KK, Lincoln, and Howe all converge there. So we're taking a close look at that and how it can be improved in the future. The Army Reserve site, and the city calls this the Army Reserve site. It's city owned. Probably most people refer to this as the grassy field north of Beulah Brinton. You can see there on the slide, there's 2 images. There's one from 2005 that shows the old Army Reserve base there, and then how it currently is, that trapezoid there along Logan and Bay Street there. So it's currently vacant. It's city owned and controlled. It's really one of the few large vacant lots in Bayview. So that's why we chose it. The previous plan recommended medium density housing with a focus for affordability and options for seniors. In terms of what we've heard so far, these are comments that from Social Pinpoint. Got a lot of different opinions here. Some people said workforce housing, new community center came up a couple times, shops for small businesses, mixed use, natural plantings or a garden with a labyrinth. Just a comment that was underutilized. And then another comment saying that it should be sustainable housing with a focus on low income. So we'll be taking a look at this site. The other one, Chase Avenue. In terms of why we chose this site, this is there's a huge parking lot that's almost never filled. There's probably some short and long-term potential here for additional and new development. It's close to a lot of great amenities. For example, the Kinnickinnick River Trail just to the north. It's also close to a lot of retail options like the Target, the Home Depot there as you go south. In terms of what we've heard so far, people are excited about the trail being expanded. And then we heard that too much parking. Then we also heard that the local DMV is an asset. We're also going to take, our third kind of development site to deep dive is the BMO Harris site. And it's probably in terms of why we chose this site, as many of you probably remember, there was a past development proposal for a 5-story apartment building with ground level retail. That was kind of controversial and it ended up not moving forward. So we know that the site was pretty controversial. And we also know that even though that development proposal didn't move forward, that something will probably be proposed in the near future. So that's really the part, the beauty of doing this study now is that we can be proactive and really thinking about what residents want, what the neighborhood wants at this site. So we can kind of set the table for future development. There is in terms of what we've heard, there is opinions, wide spectrum of comments. Heard that it's very underutilized, that it should be a major new development. One idea was a pedestrian plaza with food trucks and makers bazaar. Another comment that they wanted thoughtful development that fits with the neighborhood scale. And then someone said they preferred commercial rather than residential. And also a comment that whatever it is, it should incorporate public art. Going over, okay, so we're going to switch over to Mentimeter. So if you can go back, if you have your your smartphones handy, I'm gonna, so we're kind of, the next, there's 2 questions, and we're kind of looking to get, based on what you've heard so far, generally speaking, what are the most important considerations when thinking about new development in Bayview? This is just, thinking generally, what's important to you? Looks like people are answering, so I'll let everyone read the options themselves. Okay, starting to see some trends, but it's really spread out, and again, which is cool. And I see people are using the comment function, so that's fantastic. Yeah, so definitely seeing some scale and height that fits in with the surrounding block, followed by quality architectural design, having an active ground floor, whether that's stoops, patios. Okay, then kind of, a top, looks like, I just want to make sure everyone had time to answer there. Looks like, reasonable price points. Mix of, everything else is kind of distributed. Okay. Okay, thank you for that feedback. And then the second question are, what are priorities for development in Bayview? This kind of, I'll let everyone kind of read through some of these options on their own. Okay. Just watching those dots come in, they're speeding up. So, okay, it looks like getting some answers. Looks like the leader so far, expand diversity of the population and market, followed closely by focusing on residential quality of life, safety and cleanliness, protecting long-term homeowners and renters, having design engagement with the neighbors, involving the neighborhood. Okay. Okay, looks like most people had an opportunity to comment. Great, I will go back to the presentation and hand it back to Joe. And this slide here is going to pertain to more specifically to some of those development sites, those 3 development sites that we were just talking about, the Army Reserve, Chase Avenue, and BMO Harris. So I'll turn it over to Joe to kind of explain this exercise.
Great. So as I mentioned before, our primary role here and objective is to connect the type of feedback that you all have already started to provide and the engagement that will be ongoing throughout this project back to specific locations, focus areas, and concepts that have been prioritized. And using that feedback to shape what comes out of this plan and sets expectations for what happens within those focus areas. So we have found in doing this work for a long time that the traditional approach of engagement and then kind of hoping for the best when it gets into policy and then development has some significant shortcomings, and that that there might be a better way to think about structuring the conversation around growth and change in a way that is both useful for the public to shape the type of place that they want to continue to live in, but also provides significant clarity and sufficient guidance to developers or the city or whomever is receiving that information to make decisions around a specific development or a streetscape design, so on and so forth. And so what we've arrived at recently over the past, I'd say 3 to 4 years, is this recognition that at the end of the day, when we close our eyes and we think about the future of the place that we live in or work in or own a business in, what we're really able to identify with and have an emotional connection to is the personality of the place in which we are sitting. And that we can actually structure questions around what the personality of a given site, a street, or even whole neighborhood wants to be. And from that, glean important guidance for how property owners, developers, cities, so on and so forth, can use that information to make decisions. We have found this to be a really great predictor of what can happen from a development standpoint, even more so than some of the background considerations that, although are important, do not guarantee the type of outcome. Things like height and density and even parking or even price points are poor indicators of the types of places that get built with those kind of criteria being the only driving force. And they also happen to be fairly divisive when dealt with in the kind of abstract conceptual form. And so we've developed a way of creating a personality test for these sites. And then from that, being able to put forth options that respond to that personality. I'm going to quickly just give an overview of what these 4 personality types are, and then we'll get into asking what your feedback is for what the personality of each of these development sites that Monica went through should be in the future. So you'll see in the lower left 4 options that will show up on each of the questions. And just from a brief kind of overview standpoint, those options are as follows. So a quiet personality is largely residential and traditional in character. It doesn't have a lot of boisterous uses. It is fairly background in terms of its experience or its ability to fit into the neighborhood. You don't notice it necessarily as a prominent feature within the neighborhood. Humming is a little slicker, a little more commercial, a little more minimalist in its character. Has a pretty good daytime vibe to it. Oftentimes there are employees or folks walking around, but generally goes quiet in the evening hours as it sunsets for the day. Active is what you would think of as maybe a few places along KK or big stretches of KK where you have a lot of foot traffic, a lot of activity throughout the day and into the early evening and on weekends. It's a very welcoming place, mix of uses, and has eyeballs on the street for great parts of the week and individual days. And then the last is buzzing. This is the most boundary pushing. This is kinetic. It's got a lot going on from a hospitality standpoint, restaurants, bars, music, art, really active and vibrant and alive, maybe goes later into the evening. And so it has a real kind of kinetic energy to it. So we're going to ask for each of these sites what you kind of visualize the future of each of them being from a personality perspective.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go through each of the 3 development sites that we mentioned. So the Army Reserve, also known as that grassy field north of Beulah, Brenton. Give you some time to think about which style, which personality best fits this site. Interesting. We have some extremes, either quiet or buzzing. We'll have to, we'll be sifting through that as we move forward. Okay. Okay, let's shoot for the stars. Do stuff to connect it to Lincoln and KK. Yes, that's important, creating those connections to the rest of the neighborhood. So great comment there. Okay. I love watching these bars move up and down. So, okay, so no clear consensus. This makes it interesting. So, okay. Okay, let's move on to the next. This is Chase Avenue, thinking about the personality for Chase. Quiet, humming, active, buzzing. Okay, towards the more active side so far. Oh, same, buzzing sounds undesirable, like tourist focused. Okay. Interesting comment. Yeah, just kind of meaning it, intending it as kind of most active and dynamic. And okay, so looks like there's a little more consensus for Chase. Okay. Yeah, an active site seems to be the most popular, more than twice any of the other responses. So, okay. Interesting. And then the third one, what should the personality of new development at BMO Harris be? Okay. Out of the gate, people are saying buzzing. Followed by active and humming, kind of tied. And some comments, yeah. Okay, I'll wait to the bar stop shifting, but okay, so this one seems to be on the more great location for senior development, scale is overrated, community space, no more than 3 stories. Okay. Okay, good comments. Reduce the scale was previously proposed. Excellent. Okay. Okay. Great. We will go back to the presentation. Let me hold on. There we go. Okay, so the next this next section has to do with Kinnickinnick, which is really, I think for most people, kind of the main street of Bayview. And the reason we're looking at this, looking at like redevelopment, both in terms of, the development along the street, as well as beautifications. We're really trying to look at this holistically, thinking about how Kinnickinnick, how it can really serve the function as a main street better than it currently does. And that's looking at the street itself, as well as the development along it. And we were trying to look at those in together, because we don't want to look at them separately. We want to really look at this in a comprehensive way. What we've heard so far is that we've heard that there's some blighted properties, that those comments are focusing a little more towards the north of KK, as well as, sometimes there's property owners that are just sitting on property. So they end up looking underutilized or vacant, even though they are owned currently. Redevelopment's needed. We heard a lot of comments about crossing KK. that it just feels dangerous at certain key intersections. That sustainable features should be better incorporated. There's also been some comments, speaking to what people like, that there's been some good new development, like the Hui, the new, who just, redid their restaurant, and then the King building there, just that new building just north of the old Alchemist Theater, now the Honey Pie restaurant. So people really like how that fits into the neighborhood. We'll also, as part of this, be looking at the Lincoln Howell Plaza. And, in terms of why we're looking at this, a lot, if KK is the main street, this is kind of almost like the town hub, kind of the central area of Bayview, being the confluence of 3 major streets. We've heard, so far from people that the art stop could be better than it is. Just that it's a major hub, that it can be improved with planters and paint, kind of in the short term. Comments about some of the storefronts looking vacant or underutilized, empty. And then just a lot of comments about it. While it's a major pedestrian, it's a major destination, people are walking there all the time, yet it still feels dangerous. So we're going to be taking a look at this. And again, as I mentioned before, partnering with the Bike Federation to look at this, really in depth. So the next, we have a series of questions, and this is the last series of polling questions, but looking at 2 questions. And the first one is more about thinking about KK as a transportation corridor. So I think you have 3 options, or 2 options. What are the most important aspects of Kinnickinnick as a transportation corridor? Because we know it's a fairly narrow street, relatively speaking. So we probably can't fit everything that we'd like along there. Sometimes we have to make choices, whether it's if parking's the most important thing, or a dedicated bike lane, or separated bike lane, or wider sidewalks, or planters. What are the things that are really the most important? So it looks like, slowing traffic, making it easier to cross, really speaking to the safety aspect of it. Bike facilities, also emerging as an important factor. There's bike lanes there currently, just, regular striped bike lanes. Okay. Yeah, so easy to cross. Yeah, we noticed that there's hardly any stoplights or stop signs along KK. So people just tend to, if they're driving, they keep going, and that can sometimes be problematic. Okay, looks like most people have responded. So we're going to go on to the second question about KK. And this is really what are the most important aspects of a future KK as a public space. So this is not thinking like a driver. This is thinking walking out along KK, not when it's icy out, but on a beautiful Milwaukee summer night. What would make for a great experience walking along the street? Okay, looking for some patterns here. We have a lot of options. And again, you can put in comments, are always appreciated. Okay, looks like more public gathering places. That is probably the most popular one right now. Shade and greenery. Good point. There are virtually no street trees along KK. Cleanliness, more people, kind of with the eyes on the street. the on-street dining, patios, front yards. And the top ones, okay. Yeah, having those public gathering spots. Yeah, and part of this plan is looking at some of those opportunities for whether it's green space or just public places, making sure that those are optimized. Okay, well, thank you for all these comments. This is very, very valuable. So we're getting towards the end of the presentation. So I just want to kind of go over the timeline a little bit. You know, we're here, as the Alderwoman mentioned, nearing the halfway mark. In terms of next steps for the project, as Joe mentioned, they'll be in town the second week of April, looking at all the sites. We'll follow up by having a third community meeting towards the end of spring, end of May, early June. We'll come back with some draft recommendations based on the community feedback that we received. And following that, shortly thereafter, we'll have a series of urban design workshops where we'll really look at some of those key sites and corridors that we just went over, fleshing those out with you to really try to drill down what the best options are there and really, you know, creating that vision. Then we'll be wrapping up the plan. We'll have a draft document that's available for people to review. Looking at, you know, late summer, early fall in that general vicinity, definitely wrapping up by the end of 2022. Just want to make a plug for the project website. It's engagemke.com/Bayview. We've had various interactive online engagement there. We're posting all of our meeting materials on this website. So if you have a friend, neighbor who wasn't able to attend this meeting, they can still view a recording of this. They can look at the PowerPoint and they'll be able to take those Mentimeter, the menti.com. They'll be able to, you know, do those survey questions. We want to make sure, even though people aren't able to attend a night meeting, they can still provide the exact same feedback. And we'll be looking at adding more to social pinpoint too, to get even more feedback between meetings. That is, yeah, so that kind of goes over the next steps here. And I'll just make a quick note. I know the first two meetings have been virtual. I know, you know, COVID is keeping us all on our toes, but we really do hope that as we get closer to summer, we can take advantage of some outdoor opportunities. We're just like everyone, we're monitoring the situation to keep everyone safe, but we do miss being able to get together in person. So as we get closer to summer, we'll be looking for those opportunities and just monitoring the situation like we've been doing all along. So with that, I'm just going to check in with my colleagues. I see there's a lot of comments in the chat. Let me know, Tanya, if there's anything any questions that we can address right here.
There certainly has been a lot of discussion. I think most everything is taken care of. One of the last questions was just about the schedule for KK to be reconstructed, of which, as far as we know, we don't have a timeline. And I did just share with the person who had the question that it is under the jurisdiction of WSDOT because it is functioning as State Highway 32 currently. So that does add some complexity, but it doesn't mean that some of the changes we're talking about here are not possible. And that is something that we at the city are committed to navigating with WSDOT, and they have been participating in the process and are fully aware of the public comments and other, you know, kind of expert opinions about the corridor.
Yes, thank you. Good point. Yes, it is a state highway, so we are coordinating with them on those issues. Okay, well, thank you. If there are any other comments, please put them in the chat. If there's anything else, Alderwoman Dmitrievich, that you wanted to say, feel free to chime in.
Can I say one quick thing? Thank you, everybody. Wow, those polling methods are pretty cool. Wish I had that at the Common Council for my colleagues. But congratulations to Tanya and Monica and Joe and the team and the other Joe, to both Joes. What a way to empower people to engage. I think the chat box demonstrates our conversations in the neighborhood going back and forth, and that's what we all love about Bayview. Lots of ideas. I think some things really stand out, and I really want to thank everybody. These are long days, long nights. I want to encourage you to send the link to your friends who couldn't be here tonight. We're going to email out the recorded meeting for folks to check up, but you can leave your feedback. Some people don't like to put things in a chat box or feel comfortable. There's a way to leave feedback directly. Look at the 2 emails there. There's extra ways to participate. There's some challenges that we're going to confront. Oh, good. Yeah, lots of shout outs there. So thanks to everybody. I did send a compliment to the Commissioner of the Department of City Development, Commissioner Crump, to congratulate all the great work we have in our public servants here tonight. I want to thank all of you. Look, one concluding comment. This is our plan. So this is our moment, you know, to take those casual conversations and Facebook posts and emails into drafting mode. How exciting is it to be an architect in your own neighborhood? And I saw some awesome ideas here tonight. Let's keep them coming. Let's know that we need a lens of consensus. One thing I often see in the neighborhood is someone might want a spot to be buzzing if they don't live right next to it. But we've got to balance and find consensus. But I think everyone's being bold and visionary. And I have to make one last announcement. We're going to have 2 town hall meetings in District 14 on March 19th and 20th about having a safe spring. And we'll have the Office of Violence Prevention, the police district captains, and the Department of Public Works that's working on traffic calming measures. So stay tuned. March 19th and 20th on the west side of the district and in Bayview will be coming together. And that one actually will be in person on the 19th and 20th. So stay tuned for details there. So I just want to thank everybody. This is an exciting time to be a member of this neighborhood.
Okay, thank you and have a good evening, everyone. We truly appreciate all your feedback and look forward to continuing to build this plan together.
Thank you, everybody.